flattish, if not just a little bit above yesterday's trading price. We've got Sensex trading right now at 65,521, up about 0.12% from yesterday's closing. So it's the case with Nifty. Nifty is up about 11 points, trading right now as we speak at 10:01 a.m. Nifty is at 19,427, up again about 0.15%. Now the trade is set up squarely for today, but what is it that could dampen the market today? Well, there are certain cues coming globally. For one, all eyes right now are on the US Fed's FOMC, the Federal Open Market Committee's minutes of the meeting it held in the month of June. Now remember, FOMC had paused rates for the first time in about 12 to 14 months. It had paused rates and not hiked them as it had been doing consecutively. Now that has given a little bit of a bullish sentiment across the world in all global markets. That seems to be the case in India also, and part of the bull run that we are seeing right now comes from the fact that US for once had paused rates. But the minutes of the FOMC meeting are actually going to help us decide whether that pause is likely to continue or a new cycle of rate hikes could ensue. And if rates get hiked, then it's not just the US markets, it's not the Asian markets alone, but even the Indian markets could be dampened by the minutes of the FOMC. So that is one of the triggers that we will be looking out for today, and let's see what those FOMC minutes state. And if there is a potential of further rate hikes, this bull run, this party that we're seeing on the street may not last as long as expected. So that's all the action from the markets. Let's move on to a big story that we are tracking today, and I'm talking about the edtech giant BYJU'S. Remember, BYJU'S had a valuation of $22 billion, which got slashed consecutively to a point that it is now at a little over $5 billion. Now, a lot has gone down. Not fortunate enough for the founders at BYJU'S. A lot has gone down with corporate governance issues at this edtech giant. Remember, its books have not been audited for the last 2.5 years. Its auditor, Deloitte, has resigned. Independent board members, which included both independent as well as the venture capitalist seats that were represented on the board, being resigned last week. And there were rumors that brand ambassador Shah Rukh Khan may not continue his association with the edtech giant. And now there's a new twist in the tale. The new twist in the tale suggests that an extraordinary general body meeting, an EGM, was held yesterday in which shareholders of BYJU'S asked for Baiju Ravindran, the founder and CEO, to step down and make way for a new interim CEO. This comes again on the back of all the corporate governance issues, as well as a $1.2 billion loan book not accounted for, no means in financial reporting suggesting that BYJU'S is in a position to repay that $1.2 billion loan. And that's not all. There is a lawsuit of $500 million in the US against BYJU'S. Now, what does this really mean for the shareholders? What does this mean for the company as a whole? And what does it mean for corporate governance in the startup ecosystem in India? I'm joined by my colleague Amit Ranjan. Amit joins me here in the studio. Good morning, Amit. Good morning. Good to see you this morning. How are you doing?
Good. Raining outside.
Yeah, raining.
Raining at BYJU'S too.
But it's not raining funding
not
in the Indian startup ecosystem. What happened? What happened at that EGM yesterday, Amit?
It seems Mr. Baiju Ravindran has been asked to step aside at least till the dust settles down.
Okay.
So, and make way for a new CEO who can take stock of matters anew. That is one. And two, the stakeholders, the investors basically are asking for an account of the $910 million of the $1.2 billion loan, of which he's also facing a lawsuit in the US, as you mentioned.
Okay.
There is no basically account of this, it seems, in the pro forma that has been submitted to these people. So that was the major bone of contention, that these funds have been misused. I would not use the term misappropriated, but misused. And that is the explanation that was being demanded of Mr. BYJU'S Ravindran and his close associates who are part of the board members. So that is where that is what the information, the little information that is coming out of what transpired in the EGM was about.
So tell me something, Amit, does it make sense right now at this critical juncture that BYJU'S finds itself right in the midst of? At this juncture, does it make logical sense for the CEO, who seems to be one person who knows something that the books are not reflecting? He knows exactly where those funds came from, if at all those funds came, and where those funds got deployed. Remember yesterday, there was a statement, day before yesterday, a statement by BYJU'S which suggested that the $408 million that was sold and the stake of the three founders that was sold and taken in cash in lieu of was redeployed in the business. But there is no audited financial statement available. The only three people who seem to know this are BYJU'S Ravindran, his wife and his brother. The only three remaining board members on BYJU'S. So at this critical juncture, does it make sense for the CEO to resign?
What you are stating as the problem, as the solution, probably is also the only problem. That they are the only people who know. The stakeholders want to know what they know, and if they know it for such a long time. Remember, we have been talking that for 3 years, we are into the third year where their books have not been audited. Something that was even basically why Deloitte seemed to have complained about and left. So if they know this, and they have known this for such a long time, and they have not done anything about it because they have come to this pass, the state of BYJU'S has come to this pass, then it is time for them to make way for somebody else who can look at the whole situation brand new and take probably new decisions, which will be probably maybe hard decisions, which these people, being founders and members of the family, are not willing to take or do not have the heart to take some really hard decisions. And that is why I believe they have been asked to step aside at least till the dust settles down.
So we're talking about an interim CEO right now till the time the dust settles. But settling of this dust is not going to be easy. Remember, they are faced with corporate governance issues of not just books not being audited, a lawsuit in the US, $500 million no less, 3,500 employees sacked, and in general, the edtech market not performing at the levels that it was performing at during the pandemic. So overall, the business model takes a hit. The corporate governance issues, books not audited, lawsuits add to the financial woes. And add to that, this EGM demand for an interim CEO. Do you see this company surviving?
Everything right now, because whatever should be known is known only by BYJU'S Ravindran and his close family associates, who are the only board members left. They are the only ones who know. So we are in the realms of suspicion right now of what could be the worst. And that is what I believe is what the stakeholders are suspecting. And if what they are afraid of knowing comes out, then some really hard decisions may have to be taken.
But the question is, who's going to take those hard decisions? Because there are no independent board members.
As a founder, it is harder.
The family controls up to between 19 to 24%. The three, BYJU'S Ravindran, his wife Divya Gokulnath, and brother together control about 24% of the company. And there are no independent board members. It's not a listed company. And who takes that final decision on stepping aside, stepping down, or not?
Once the information is out, at least that decision can be recommended. So that is as far as it can go. But right now, as I said, we are in the realms or in the space of suspicion right now. We don't know. But obviously, there is something that we don't know, which is difficult to digest, at least for the founders. And that is why they don't want other people to know. That is what I can basically gesticulate from what's going on.
Okay, I've also got my colleague KrishnaKumar joining me this morning. Krishna, good morning. How does it feel to be on the other side?
Well. Talking about the rains in Noida, it's raining like Bombay here in Noida, non-stop for an hour. Nobody's going to believe this. It has never rained in Delhi NCR where the rains last for an entire hour in full force. So I know people have tuned into this broadcast for a good business news updates on economy and finance, but I can confidently tell you that the first update that needs to be given here is that monsoon is in full swing. This is very good for the economy. We're talking about the June rains being lesser than expected, but looks like July is set to make up for it. Bear in mind, July is the main monsoon month of India across the country. If the rains in Noida are anything to go by, I can 100% be sure that in Kerala and Bombay and wherever else we need monsoons for agriculture, there's enough that's going to come our way. But talking about BYJU'S, Kartik,
it's not raining any sort of funding in BYJU'S.
It's raining problems in BYJU'S. It's raining miseries in BYJU'S. And the one question that we haven't asked till this morning, having discussed BYJU'S throughout the entire week and the week before, is that guy going to step down?
Should he step down? Does it make sense for him to step down?
Yeah.
See, objectively speaking, Krishna, I believe the amount of the magnitude of problems, the magnitude of issues around corporate governance are so huge that had this been a publicly listed company, there was no way that the CEO would have survived.
Look at what's happening in the Tata Group. For example,
Yeah.
there's a governance issue in TCS, a really peripheral one that doesn't involve any of the top management.
Yeah.
It happened in TCS, and today, this morning, we understand there's a similar problem in Tata Steel as well. Look at what's happening. The chairman of the Tata Group, not just the MD and the CEO of individual Tata companies, the chairman of the Tata Group takes it upon himself, hey, this is a corporate governance issue. We can't take it lightly. This is the kind of issue that will lose investor trust, shareholder trust, stakeholder trust. Or the trust gets lost when there's a governance issue. And the fact that BYJU'S has been sitting with this kind of governance issues for so long.
2.5 years at least. At least.
My concern is I thought it really raised alarm bells when a company doesn't file its audited financial statements on time.
My point is, Krishna, I agree. And I think I have been an equal advocate, if not more, suggesting that these corporate governance need to be really stemmed now. But the point is, there are only 3 people left on the board of BYJU'S,
right,
including the founder and CEO Baiju Ravindran himself. Who takes the decision for the CEO to step down? And if the CEO steps down, who replaces the CEO and takes charge of this mess?
Right.
Is it even a palatable solution? The shareholders can demand.
I have a counter argument for it. We are in India. India is a country of family-run businesses. Strangely, the most new age of all businesses, tech-based businesses, which wasn't fundamentally family-run, because the moment they got investors on board, they had a larger board, other people happening, has now been reduced to a family-run business.
And 3.
Right.
Just 3
Just
people.
3. And here, you're right, like your point, you got exactly 3. All of them are family members. The responsibility lies square on one family. Nobody can say in this board constitution that I didn't know what board member 2 was doing or board member 3 was doing. All 3 board members knew exactly what they were doing. So the question is, if you ask me, you take it further, it's not just about Baiju Ravindran stepping down, but should BYJU'S be run by the same family which founded BYJU'S?
And if not, who takes over? The point is, right now, at this valuation, dirt cheap, one would argue that at 5 billion, it's an easy target for any edtech company to step in, or a non-edtech company to step in and expand its portfolio into education. But given the overall slump in the edtech market, I doubt it's going to be viable even for somebody to buy it at this reduced valuation.
Kartik, correct me if I'm wrong. Any valuation of a startup that's over 1 billion makes the startup a unicorn.
Correct.
Right? BYJU'S was a 22 times unicorn.
It was a decacorn twice over. It was a decacorn twice over.
Now it is still 5 times a unicorn. My question is 5 billion the bottom for BYJU'S as far as valuation is concerned? We're talking 5 billion based on Process, the Dutch investor in BYJU'S, which has a minority stake in BYJU'S, called Process, a Netherlands-based investor, reduced its own valuation of its stake in BYJU'S, which sort of alludes to the fact that the overall valuation of BYJU'S is at $5 billion. True. If somebody were to now Summatoify the whole thing and put together BYJU'S businesses, White Hat Junior, how it's doing, Akash, there is Zest money also involved somewhere, right. God knows, so many things happening over here. When they put it all together, will the valuation come down? Will it stop being a unicorn? We can ask questions like that right now. So my point is that if somebody were to come in and take over, I think they will revalue the business. And maybe from 5, it will go down to 2, and even at 2, it's a unicorn, So
right. I think there are various theories of evaluating the valuation of businesses, and some theories suggest that 10x of your profitability or 4x of your revenue seems to be a good calculation. But again, the point is, in the absence of any financial reporting, how does one arrive at that figure?
What is BYJU'S' profitability? We don't know. What is?
We know the losses. We know the losses. Profitability is still elusive.
And in a sense, to me, if you ask me, revenues as well. When you don't have financial audited statements, who's to believe that the revenues that they claim to be getting are the real revenues?
Absolutely. So will he or won't he, is BYJU'S Ravindran going to step down, step aside, make way for an interim CEO? Or is everything going to run typically like a family-owned Lala business? It's my money, it's my company, it's my decision. I think that is something that we will obviously keep our eyes completely glued to, and through our eyes make you see the inside story of what is happening at BYJU'S. Now let's move on. Let's move on to from this aura of negativity, and it's been a rainy day, it's been a gloomy morning. Let's move to some glimmer of hope, and some glimmer of hope in the Indian skies. And I'm talking about, of course, something that we pretty much have been discussing every day since 3rd of May, ever since GoFirst grounded its entire fleet and filed for voluntary insolvency. GoFirst is inching one step closer to the runway every day, and it now finds itself in a beautiful situation where the Delhi High Court, no less, has come to its rescue and the rescue of the lessors, asking DGCA, in fact, directing DGCA and the airports across India to open the gates, open the hangars for the lessors to come and inspect the aircraft. And this also comes at a time when Pratt & Whitney, the engine maker, the engines that were faulty that led to the grounding of GoFirst, have now given apparently their unwavered commitment to not just provide new engines but also service the existing faulty engines. All this is timing really well, and it seems every day we are moving one step closer to the GoFirst fleet of aircraft, from the hangar to the taxiway, all the way to the runway, and hopefully to the skies soon. Krishna.
Well. To take the things back, as you rightly pointed out, the technical reason given by GoFirst when it went off skies was the fact that there was not enough quality engines and servicing of engines available. That was the fundamental reason, so to speak, apart from other issues that GoFirst was facing. So if that was the fundamental issue, and a world-class, world-renowned Amit knows all about Pratt & Whitney. Pratt & Whitney engines, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the main aviation engines. It's like equivalent of what ATF fuel is to aircraft. The engine, you talk about a famous brand like Rolls-Royce, which once upon a time used aircraft engines. So, in that sense, engines are very important, and like the way you like your car engines, the aircraft engines are equally important.
Rolls-Royce, General Electric, yeah. Pratt & Whitney. I mean, it's a fairly...
it's a holy trinity of a different kind. So in that sense, Pratt & Whitney, globally renowned, biggest engine maker, aircraft engine maker, saying that has vowed to provide engines to GoFirst, has vowed to service engines to GoFirst. So the technicality with which it went off skies is going off again. So in that sense, the way to read this is this. As we speak, there's an inspection of GoFirst's aircraft that's taking place in Bombay today.
That's the DGCA audit you're talking about.
Right, the DGCA audit, the inspection. The Directorate General of Civil Aviation of India has given the go-ahead for an audit. In fact, it's doing the audit. So there are two audits that are taking place immediately. One is the one in Mumbai, where GoFirst's facilities and GoFirst aircraft are being inspected. And then, of course, Delhi. And as Kartik was telling you, guys, Delhi High Court has given the go-ahead for that inspection into GoFirst facilities in Delhi. So which put together means that on one hand, the existing fleet is being cleared for a takeoff. On the other hand, for the future maintenance of this existing fleet and to add to this fleet and to make sure the engines of the existing fleet remain fresh and new and perfect in condition, we have Pratt & Whitney agreeing to not just provide engines but also service those engines. Very, very important. So these two are the factors, are the reason why we're even saying things like GoFirst is going to take to the air very soon. And as you noticed, we cannot give a date. We cannot best say very soon. Soon, tomorrow morning, if you check with us, we'll tell you sooner than yesterday for sure. But the fact of the matter is that all of this all goes well, Kartik. We're tracking the story because this is very important for all of the consumers watching our show.
Totally.
Or for us who are looking to travel sometime during the monsoon season, during the summers this time, within India, that is. So for fares to rationalize, GoFirst taking the skies is important. And all we can tell you at this stage is that it is all moving in the right direction. If you had asked us 2 weeks ago, when there were issues about other creditors claiming that why did GoFirst go into insolvency with having without having paid our dues, etc., those confusions seem to be going away, Kartik. That's why
actually those confusions still remain. But I think the statement from Pratt and Whitney has made it clear that it is committing to service these engines. With a commitment back from GoFirst that once flight operations resume, the cash flow that comes from these operations will be used to settle the dues to Pratt and Whitney. So I think that is number one. Number two, I think that is not going to be enough. It's going to be a couple of months. Remember, it's been 2 months already, and God knows how much longer until revenue from operations continues or restarts for GoFirst.
Right.
But until then, this interim infusion of 400 to 500 crore rupees, there are multiple figures doing the rounds, 425, 450 crores, but this roughly 400 to 500 crore rupees of interim funding that will come from lenders would also be used, I'm hoping, to repay whatever dues GoFirst has, because it has a fairly large loan book as well.
The only point I was trying to make was, Kartik, was that all these issues should not stop the process of GoFirst taking to the skies.
Yeah.
So there has been no stoppage. There was a possibility that this could be an obstacle because the NCLAT was supposed to take it up as well. So there was a possibility that all of this could sort of hobble, GoFirst's journey to the skies. But looks like that journey is continuing. We are only moving further closer to GoFirst taking to the skies, and that to me is an extremely positive sign, Kartik.
Lovely. So let's move on. I think it usually takes a credit card to book an airline ticket. And the latest from the Reserve Bank of India suggests that whether to book a flight or not, when you issue a credit card from a bank, the choice is going to be in your hands, dear consumers. You will decide whether you get a Visa or a MasterCard or a RuPay or an American Express or a Diners Club. The choice completely rests with you at the time of choosing a credit card linked to your bank account. And it's not going to be up to the bank anymore to offload either a Visa or a MasterCard as per their running contracts with either of those service providers, and thrust those non-options down your hands. So, Amit?
Yeah, the choice is shifted by the RBI from the banks to the consumer. The banks still have till the 4th of August to give feedback. This decision will be effective from the 1st of October.
Okay.
So I don't think
it's not cast in stone yet. The banks could write back to the RBI and say, hey, it doesn't work because I get a better commission from MasterCard or from Visa respectively.
Could happen, but I do not think that is what the RBI wants. But I believe if they've already settled the date that from the 1st of October it will be effective, then it will only be feedback to modify the decision. Right now, at the time of issuing also, the consumer need not decide. And if he has decided on one network provider, he can change it at a later date.
So, I see. Yes. Okay, so you may have an existing, let's say, HDFC MasterCard
and then
credit
at a later date,
you could change it to
Visa. You can. So that is the report we are getting right now. So there will be feedback probably till the 4th of August on these issues, that how much of choice do we give to the consumer?
Oh, lovely. So, Krishna, it happened with me once. I was traveling to Africa, a small country called Gabon.
Yes.
And I only had one little MasterCard, HDFC MasterCard on me. And there was no acceptance of MasterCard in any of the stores in the country of Gabon.
What were they
talking
accepting?
about 2017, 2018. They were so they had their own debit cards and their own bank issued cards, but they were accepting Visa.
Oh.
And I didn't have Visa. I had an American Express and I had an HDFC MasterCard.
Oh.
I didn't have a choice. Of course, I had a choice to take the American Express. It had great reward points. Not advocating it, just stating it out there, not advocating. It offered good reward points at a time when Kingfisher used to fly and at a time when those points from American Express could be redeemed for free tickets on Kingfisher. Kingfisher went down, never mind.
Oh, great lounge access.
And great lounge access. But I was stuck with a MasterCard for a span of 3 weeks. No Visa, and hence no digital payments. What does this really mean now, this choice in the hands of consumers? What does this really mean for us?
I know when I came across the survey, it was interesting because initially, the way to go about this, initially the customers have a choice to choose what kind of card they get. You can want to get a credit card, you get a credit card. You want to get a debit card, you get a debit card.
Debit card is default, right? You open a bank account, you get a debit card which can be used in ATMs.
Exactly.
But again, the debit card could also be either a Visa or a MasterCard, right?
Yes, exactly. And now the new rule means it's not just for credit cards. It's credit cards, debit cards, prepaid cards, forex cards, any card that you get from a bank. You can choose the service provider. It could be a MasterCard or a Visa or a RuPay. The choice for the first time in the history of cards in India has been given to the customer. So the funny way of looking at it is that first you could choose the nature of the card. You want a credit card, you get a credit card. You want a debit card, you get a debit card. You want a forex card, you get a forex card. Now you can decide the network on which your card is. That's what it essentially does. Takes it further to the customer. Customer is king being the logic over here. And it's exactly for the kind of situations that you're talking about over there that you faced in Gabon.
Yeah, but let's come back home. I mean, Gabon was a very different example. Right. It just struck me the moment, this news came out this morning. But not too many people would be traveling to Gabon, I'm assuming, from India. My point is, in India, you go to any store, I think Visa and MasterCard are pretty much homogeneous products. What difference does it make to your life or my life if I have a Visa versus a MasterCard?
My question, I think, not my question, my sense is that I think this entire rule is to ensure that people choose RuPay. Yes. I think this entire process is to throw it open and tell the people, you know what, you have the choice. And then, if you're nationalistic enough, if you're patriotic enough, choose RuPay. It's our service. And RuPay is now being extended abroad as well. If you go to Singapore and Dubai, you have RuPay, cards are being accepted.
But they are not yet universal.
Absolutely not.
They're not yet universal.
And the point is
I'm hoping someday they would be. It would be accepted at par with a Visa or a MasterCard. Right. But RuPay still seems to be an exclusive club. Not exclusive when you talk about Diners Club or American Express. Exclusive to India, Indianness and the Indian subcontinent, more or less.
What if more people subscribe to that eventually? We wouldn't know. The question, I think RBI is asking that question. I think this entire move is asking that question. Visa and MasterCard are homogeneous. Means nothing. You can choose Visa, means nothing. You can choose MasterCard, means nothing. Wherever Visa is accepted, MasterCard is accepted. But what if you want RuPay? What if you trust RuPay more? What if you're proud of having a RuPay? What if you want to have a RuPay card when you're traveling abroad and want to tell people that, hey, listen, I'm not on Visa or MasterCard. I'm Indian, I have RuPay. I'm not saying that that's going to happen. My point is that I think this is a gambit. I think this is to make the consumers think as to what this means even. What does, you have a bank account, what is this Visa thing in your card? What is this MasterCard thing in your card? How does it make a difference to your life? What if it was a RuPay? These are the questions I think the authorities want the consumers to be thinking, and this move to me is sort of pushing the consumers to think on those lines more than definitively arrive at, this is going to be extremely good for consumers. Okay. It's more about, one is about familiarizing people with RuPay, which they wouldn't. Right, you go get a card, a debit card or whatever, it automatically comes out as a Visa card or a MasterCard. And you're just happy that you got a card in quick time from the time of opening the account or asking for a credit card. You just get the card and you can use it. It's accepted everywhere. That's all that you give a damn about. But what if, somebody, thinks away from all of this? What if by the time, we're talking about this 5 years down the line, RuPay is as ubiquitous as Visa and MasterCard? We wouldn't know. But the idea is that the Indian government wants to push RuPay and make it as ubiquitous as other service providers. And to me, this is one way of starting the wider acceptance of RuPay first from the consumer's end and then take it towards everybody else as well.
Right. Interesting hypothesis there. Do you agree? Is this a soft push towards RuPay? Driving out competition from the Indian market, eventually perhaps from the subcontinent and thereafter the world?
That is one way, and what I see happening in the next few months is a flush of money going within these companies, Visa, MasterCard and even RuPay, towards hardcore, aggressive advertising and marketing campaigns towards the consumers.
Couldn't agree more.
But, I think the government and NPCI both have the option to, there are economic principles that can be deployed, and choice not being one of them. The economic principle could be a lower transaction fee on a RuPay transaction versus a Visa or MasterCard transaction. It would automatically urge banks to try and pass on more RuPay cards to their customers than Visa or MasterCard. So again, this whole choice seems to be, I'm not sure if the push would be towards RuPay. I think the choice here is just choice. Are we reading too much into it?
But Kartik, like you just said, if it is choice, and there's no difference between choosing a Visa and a MasterCard, where is the choice? The only difference...
Cashbacks? You happen to be on a platform that gives more cash back on MasterCard than
Fair
Visa.
enough.
You could
Same
So
applies
all
to RuPay.
these
That's what I'm trying to
aggressive-
make. What if RuPay offers great benefits to consumers going forward after this? And there's aggressive advertising push, like he's talking about.
Marketing too. So everything
So
that you're
one-
saying will
on
be
one-
part of that push.
Right. On one hand, you have news where like, oh, I can choose. Hold on a second. What is this ad all about? Oh, if I choose this, I get less. I get charged less. Yeah, definitely. Now I will choose.
Conspiracy theories there.
It's a 1-2 step. It's a 1-2 step punch. Kind of. If I
I'll
may.
take you guys back about 15 years. Remember that American Express ad which said quite simply, this ad is not for everybody because it was an invitation.
Right.
American Express
Right.
card.
Right.
That time. Now the choice, at least the consumer feels that if I want you, it's not you wanting me. It is I want you. So you have to basically woo me. So that's
Alright.
where it is all shifted
All
to.
right.
Like-
So
like you said,
more
cashbacks.
aggressive marketing from the likes of RuPay, Visa, MasterCard,
MasterCard,
American Express,
Diners.
Diners Club, and what have you. I think the option now opens up squarely for the consumer to choose on the basis of the communication by these local and global giants on wooing the customer onto their platform through, of course, the intermediary banks. But interestingly, credit cards have also been in discussion from the perspective of TCS, tax collected at source, anytime you swipe a credit card abroad internationally. Of course, those rules apparently didn't have too many legs, firm legs to stand on, and hence have been in the ambit of one change to another, lowering of rates, the threshold being revised to 7 lakh rupees, etc. But all this was done for the taxman to really go after, or the taxwoman in our case, to go after the big spenders in India and abroad who use credit cards or avail of other products and services which cost obnoxiously high amounts of money, for which apparently returns are not filed. So going after the tax evaders has been, and widening of the tax net has been, one of the key focus areas for Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. And now the tax authorities want to go after domestic big spenders as well. Amit, IVF clinics?
Yes.
This was discussed earlier as well. IVF clinics, any spends on IVF surgeries, processes would invite the lens of the taxman. High spends at luxury purchases, retail outlets. We are back pretty much to the same story. What's going on here?
There is the IT department has initiated investigation, of course, non-intrusive. The tax officials have been instructed, it seems, that these investigations have to be non-intrusive, on a mismatch of a 10% rise in filings. See, in these IVF clinics, any transaction above 2 lakhs has a mandatory reporting, and the PAN card has to be basically submitted.
Okay.
The suspicion in the tax department is most of these transactions, especially from NRIs,
Okay.
in these clinics and medical colleges, are in cash. So therefore, the records are not basically maintained. And that is what they're investigating. There has been a 10% rise in filings, but the revenues that have been reported do not match.
Oh, so more number of people filing returns, but the amount of returns being filed, the amount of tax being collected lower. Than that 10%.
Even from these institutions.
So we are talking about direct and indirect tax. There is indirect tax evasion because of cash settlement, lowered invoices being generated,
yes,
and hence no mechanism to reconcile what was the actual exchange of cash.
But good thing is, from year 2022 to 2023, 21 to 22, the filings went up 6.8%. Now they have gone up 10%. So more people are coming to these clinics and medical colleges, and most of them are NRIs. But the amount they are spending over here does not match.
But
So that
tell me
means the
something.
cash
There's a glitch in the
transactions-
matrix, Kartik.
No, but the glitches are not going to get erased, I believe, simply because if What are we really alluding to here? We are saying there are cash transactions happening at IVF clinics, at medical colleges, at high street retail outlets,
Luxury resorts.
luxury resorts. These are cash transactions. There's a mismatch because people are paying in cash. It doesn't directly reflect in their bank statements or the traces form 26, and hence a lower tax, direct tax outgo on account of residents, citizens filing taxes, non-residents or residents filing taxes. On the other end, because these are cash transactions, under-reporting by businesses as well.
Right.
My point is fairly simple, I assume. If you were to get the taxman's lens on these transactions, the invoice generated would still be for a cash payment, an amount that at the time of transaction the buyer and the seller agree to stamp on the paper. So if there is this connivance between the availer of the service and the provider of the service to not file taxes and indirectly benefit the other party as well, you could still arrive at a lower amount on your invoice.
See, these investigations the tax department does for donkey's years.
Yeah.
Most of them were being done in high net worth stores, premium watch companies, jewelry companies. Right now, they have targeted IVFs. Now, my suspicion is, and NRIs, IVFs relates to surrogacy. These people come to India for these purposes and they spend in cash. Now, that is what I suspect is where they are targeting.
Yeah, I think this, I would in a sense agree with Amit, because it just goes back to the way money is spent. Money not from this country is spent in this country. So that's why you're looking at all those things that HNIs, people who earn in dollars and pounds and euros who come to India. And let's face it, say if you're an American and you're earning in dollars, you know how expensive insurance is in America. You know when you get medical insurance, you get any kind of insurance, there's good chance that your claim is going to be denied. And how expensive are doctors in America? How expensive is getting any kind of treatment in America? Great country, fantastic to go settle in, etc., etc. But as far as medical expenses are concerned, we know that Indians in America go to the Philippines to get their tooth fixed. Because it's cheaper to take a flight from America to the Philippines. And Philippines as a whole, generation of dentists, who've been doing this because it makes for
That's
great
right.
business.
Turkey is the second one, and Turkey is not just famous for dentistry; it's also famous for plastic surgery. It's
Absolutely.
famous for orthopedic surgeries.
And what is India famous for? Dirt cheap medical expenses. We Indians complain about it, but it is still lesser than some of these other countries. So, and especially for Indians, this is a homecoming. At the same time, homecoming of many ways. Go to a banquet, go get your surrogacy registered, get your kid a medical college seat, if need be here in India. So, I think in the sense there is connivance, like what you're talking about, there is a lot of connivance, and there's a huge trend that's being unearthed of people bringing money that was not made within the borders of this country, bringing it over here and spending it, and not, making sure that they are accountable for all the spending that they do. So I think, I don't want to get too deep into it, but from the looks of it, it looks like it's a trend that's been unearthed. The solutions will take time coming.
Got it.
The CBDT, and in this case, we're talking about indirect tax avoidance. This is incidentally initiated by CBDT, Central Board for Direct Taxes. So
right.
we'll get to indirect taxes being evaded later, but first it's all about fixing where the direct taxes are getting evaded.
And two, we talk about investigations being initiated by the IT department. We should later on look at what is the success rate of these investigations.
Yes.
Right.
And
Of course. So
and
all that data is going to trickle in, and of course we will keep an eye on that, and more so if you have been paying high amounts of money in cash and have been receiving an invoice for the same cash amount or a lower cash amount that you have actually spent. Be careful, because the tax woman is not going to spare you. And let's move on now to another very, very interesting story which did the rounds about 2 weeks back, and the date was announced as 6th of July for the launch of Maruti Suzuki's most expensive car on Indian roads ever. I'm talking about the multi-purpose utility vehicle MUV called Invicto. Invicto was one of the few cars from the Maruti stable assumed to be touching near about 20 lakh rupees or so in value. But guess what? It's not 20 lakhs. It's not 21 lakhs, it's almost 25 lakh rupees. That's Maruti Suzuki's most expensive car on Indian roads yet. And remember, Maruti Suzuki commands a 20% market share in the SUV segment. Unfortunately, Maruti has not yet been able to launch an electric vehicle. But if reports are to be believed, and if statements from Shashank Sharma are to be believed, to Reuters specifically, Maruti Suzuki is on its way to launch up to 6 electric vehicles by the end of this decade, by 2030 or so. Invicto, Krishna, we have made fun of this for a while, not of the Invicto, but of the fact that you've been wanting to buy a car for a while.
That is funny.
Were you waiting for prices to go up and for Maruti to launch more and more expensive cars, so you would finally put your hands on a 25 lakh rupee Maruti Suzuki Invicto?
Right, Kartik, it worked like this. These MPVs, SUVs, MUVs, are the name of the game today.
Yeah.
And we keep talking about how they were not meant to be the city cars because they're guzzlers.
Right.
They're huge, they're big, they're guzzlers. They're not meant for quick, snappy city driving.
But you know what? With the Invicto, which rides on the Toyota Innova Hi-Cross model, it's a smart hybrid. It's pretty much on lines with the Grand Vitara hybrid.
Yeah.
So I think the fuel guzzling part of it has been taken care of in these hybrids. And these hybrids, of course, are one step reaching up to the electric vehicle mark, but they are somewhere in between the ICE and the EV segment. So I think the fuel part has been taken care of, the fuel guzzling part.
The larger point I'm trying to make here is that I've been waiting on a car because I've seen the trends just changed every 3 months to 6 months. Now you have the subcompact mini SUV, which wasn't existent about a year ago. So it's a good time to wait and watch and see how cars are evolving, and also how the prices of electric vehicles are going to be going forward, because they don't come at a premium today that they used to, say, 5 years ago. They're far more affordable today, they have a better ecosystem today. So actually, I'm thinking on whether to go all electric or to still stick by the traditional non-renewable fuel sources when it comes to buying a car. But talking about the Invicto per se, it is the most expensive car from Maruti's stable, not known for launching the most expensive cars. But the fact of the matter is that one thing I just noticed was that it doesn't come with the ADAS feature in its top-end variant like the Toyota Innova Hi-Cross does. But what the Invicto is, the first time it's a badge-engineered product which is run reverse. So you have the Maruti Baleno and the Toyota Glanza as parallel products. You have the Maruti Vitara Brezza and the Urban Cruiser of Toyota. In this case, it's the Invicto, which has been engineered and made in India, where it is, although it is based on the Toyota Innova Hi-Cross platform, it is a car of its own. It is original from Maruti's stable, and comes in multiple variants, 7-seaters, 8-seaters, if some of them. So the question here is that will people go and buy a really expensive Maruti car? This was the first problem that broke out when the pricing came out of Maruti Invicto on social media. Everybody was like, hey, you're Maruti. I'm supposed to come to you for a great price differentiator or a great price value that I'm going to buy you for. So in that sense, it's not very expensive as compared to the Toyota Innova Hi-Cross, but it's still right there in the league of pricing. So all the features, the tech wizardry inside the car, the utility of the car, all of that is very, very clear. My only question is, will Indians go out and spend top dollar on a Maruti MPV?
Amit, talk to me about the premiumization of the Maruti brand. And we've seen examples globally. Now, finally, with Nexa, and Nexa being pretty much, a synonym for the entire premium range of Maruti Suzuki brands. And most of these 15 lakh and above cars from the Maruti stable are now sold through the exclusive Nexa showrooms. Do you think from a management standpoint, there is a case in point here for Maruti to shed the Maruti tag on some of its elite cars?
They need to, because Maruti has a brand image of being an affordable car. North of 20 lakhs, you get a whole lot of buyers which are known as aspirational buyers.
Right.
What are they looking for? Mostly European cars when they came in. Volkswagen basically piggybacked on that emotion for quite some time. The whole campaign around the Beetle, which does not exist anymore, but was around this aspiration. So would Maruti be able to change its image with the name Maruti itself to basically bring in those aspirational buyers on the Maruti brand name is what we have to wait and see. And let's see how they basically promote it, go about their campaigns, go about getting their customers in this segment. So that is what will be interesting to see, and it'll become a very good case study actually.
Okay, but Krishna, on the contrary, 20% market share in SUVs, and Maruti Suzuki was a late entrant in the SUV space. Despite that, with recent launches of just about a year ago or so, talk about the Grand Vitara, talk about the Jimny, which the whole world was really waiting for with bated breath. You had the Jimny, you had the Fronx, which I'm not sure it would qualify as a compact SUV, but yeah, that's what it's been tagged as. So Fronx, Jimny, Grand Vitara, now the Invicto, and add to that maybe even the Brezza.
Yeah.
These sort of complete the SUV, MPV, MUV gamut stack of Maruti.
Maruti, yeah.
Despite the Maruti tag, despite the Maruti tag and being a late entrant into the SUV large car market, it has got a 20% market share. It hopes by the end of this financial year, FY24, to take it 5 notches higher up to 25% market share.
Right.
Is there any need to shed the trust of the Maruti brand, just like Tata hasn't shed the Tata brand with the acquisition of JLR?
Right, but the thing is that Tata has a hit product on its hand called Nexon in the entire SUV segment.
Tata had a very, very beautiful flop model called Indica, which sold numbers, but only taxis.
Mini hatchback is what an Indica is, roughly speaking.
Was.
We are in a new SUV world. Everything is a version of an SUV. And you're talking about the Jimny. Wasn't it the same concern with Maruti pricing the Jimny above the Thar, so to speak? In this case, the Invicto and High Cross, the difference is 30,000 rupees or 50,000 rupees at best. There's hardly any price difference. But there are features difference. For example, the Invicto comes in 3 trims. There is 2 versions of 7-seater and 1 8-seater version.
Right. Whereas
the Toyota Innova High Cross comes in 5 trims. So the options are more in Toyota Innova High Cross. The top-end model of Toyota Innova High Cross, as I've been telling you guys, has the ADAS features, the Advanced Driver Assistance feature, which an Invicto doesn't. And there are a couple of other features which the top-end models of Toyota Innova High Cross has, which a Invicto doesn't. Does that justify the 30 to 50 grand difference in price? I'm not really sure. But then again, you're talking about Maruti's gambit in this entire space. Look at what's happening. It's going up against the Thar with the Jimny. It's going up against a Toyota Innova High Cross with Invicto. These are not easy things to accomplish. So I will give Maruti a fair amount of time because Tata took its own time making Nexon a hit.
Right.
So I will give Maruti its own time to see how it can dominate the big, massive SUV segment, which is called the MPV and others, from Jimny to Invicto.
Right. So Krishna is going to give Maruti Suzuki some time to assert its dominance in the SUV MPV market, but the dominance of Royal Enfield seems to be challenged now. And 2 recent announcements, one of course that came 2 days back from Harley Davidson in a joint venture with Hero MotoCorp, launching the X440, a 440cc engine motorcycle on Indian roads, priced at 3.29 lakh rupees. And guess what? Harley Davidson is not alone in coming back to India. This time I'm talking about Triumph. Triumph has come to India in partnership with Bajaj Auto, again in the in the higher than 350cc category of engines. Amit, you have a fascination for motorcycles. You're very bullish on going and making that Harley Davidson purchase. Are you equally excited about Triumph?
Like you said, it's target the market that Royal Enfield has right now, and they are going in with a very aggressive strategy. They're pricing the Speed 400 at 2.33, but the first 10,000 buyers get it for 2.22.
Oh, so
it's very aggressive.
Makes it even cheaper than the Harley Davidson X440.
Yes.
But it is also a lower powered motorcycle, right? The X440 is 450cc,
yes,
440cc. This is 398, almost 400cc. And the Royal Enfield is 350cc. So how do you see this whole market of 350cc and above shaping up in India?
They're all equally powerful. So between 350cc and 450cc, I do not know from the consumer point of view it is that much of a difference. Unless you're going for 500 and 650cc's. Those are different, more powerful. They go for different sorts of basically customers. But so they are in the same range. But the market of Royal Enfield is definitely in for some strain in the times to come. These two models, they have not announced the price of the second one that they're launching, that is the Scrambler. So they've only announced the price of the Speed 400, the Scrambler 400, which is also going to be, which was also announced this week. They've yet to announce the price. So I think they're taking their time to see how the market is reacting, and then they'll price it accordingly. And that is a more powerful motorcycle. So probably that will not be as cheap as this one.
All right. So who will triumph over Indian roads? Is it going to be Triumph in a joint venture with Bajaj Auto? Or, well, is it going to be a game of David and Goliath with Harley Davidson? That is something that we will have to, of course, keep waiting, and we will have to keep reporting on, which we will continue doing here on Business Plus on News 9. And thank you so much for tuning in this morning. News and updates continue here on News 9. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.
मैं इमरान अहमद खान नियाजी सबके दिल से हल्फ उठाता हूँ.
When Imran Khan came initially into politics, he thought his personal popularity would be sufficient for him. It didn't happen.
The retired military generals are openly saying that Imran Khan is a better choice.
Imran Khan may have bitten a bit too much, more than what he can chew.
Implosion. This and more. Streaming on world's first news OTT. News 9 Plus. Download now.
With all this gear, you must be wondering if I'm climbing a mountain. Well, let me give you a wider look of this place. This is Asia's largest mountain of shame.
A mountain of waste, almost the height of the Qutub Minar.
When you enter capital cities of some of the biggest countries in the world, you don't have three garbage mountains waiting to welcome you depending on whichever side of the city you enter from.
The thing is that a lot of times we talk about landfills only when there's a fire at the landfill. You need to understand that a landfill is at fire almost throughout the year. It's only when the firefighters are not able to douse the fire is when it actually catches the nation's attention, the city's attention, or media attention.
The towering landfills worsen one of Delhi's biggest problems: pollution.
यहाँ पर आप रात को आओ, दिन में आओ, आप 1 घंटे बैठ नहीं सकते बाहर. इतनी धूल, प्रदूषण, महक, आप खाना भी नहीं खा सकते बाहर बैठ के.
Life around the landfill is a curse.
हमारे घर में जो बड़े हैं उन्हें अस्थमा के वो पेशेंट है, आए दिन उनको नेबुलाइजर लगाना पड़ता है.
डॉक्टर ने मुझे ये चीज बोला कि यहाँ का एरिया छोड़ के कहीं और चाहिए.
Delhi's garbage mountains are now a fetid symbol of the national capital's trash problem. The question is, who is to be blamed? Watch Delhi's Garbage Mountains. Streaming on News 9 Plus for the Genflix.
On March 20, 2023, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change warned member states they were not doing enough to limit global warming. Phase out coal by 2040, appealed United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres.
no new coal, and the phasing out of coal by 2030 in OECD countries and 2040 in all other countries.
Fossil fuels like coal, gas, and oil emit carbon dioxide. This stays in the atmosphere longer than other greenhouse gases like methane. The world used more than 8,000 million tons of coal in the year 2022. Its emission traps heat in the Earth's atmosphere and raises temperatures.
India has been consistently advocating that we move away completely from fossil fuels, not just identifying coal as one of the villains in this case. And this stand was, so to say, raised by India at the COP. But then the developed economies did not sign. Now, the good thing is that the UN also has, so to say, vindicated its India's stand by saying that this is the right approach to go.
India's installed power generation capacity is more than 4 lakh megawatt. This includes fossil and non-fossil fuels. Of this, almost half is coal. The remaining sources of energy include hydropower, lignite, gas, diesel, wind, solar, and nuclear.
We consumed about 697 million tons in the power sector. I'm not talking about coal for all the other sectors, which was over 1,000 million tons last year. Up to 2030 will be, the power sector will consume about 990 million tons or so.
India should actually, not only sustain its coal production, but grow it. And I'm happy to tell you that India is exactly doing that. It is growing its production and it has set some ambitious targets. And what is interesting is that now there is a plan to actually export coal by 2026. So that's extremely on track when it comes to looking at the coal policy in this country.
India's energy demand is going to quadruple over the next 20 years. And it cannot rely on a variable source of generation like REs.
You have sun, which shines only for a few hours in the day. Similarly, wind blows only at certain times of the year and certain time of the day. We do have some amount of hydro, but it cannot take. Hydro also has its limitations in terms of environmental issues. So we have to depend on coal.
China won't let us rest easy on our borders, but they will keep flooding our markets. What does Xi Jinping really want?
I think he wants the Indian market, no doubt about it. It's really a matter of showing their dominance.
India's great Chinese conundrum.